Broadcasting live from the Business RadioX studios in Phoenix, Arizona, it's time for Phoenix Business Radio, spotlighting the city's best businesses and the people who lead them.
Welcome to Phoenix Business Radio, broadcasting live from the Business RadioX studio inside Mac 6 Workspace and the Conscious Capitalism Arizona headquarters in Tempe, Arizona, where we help build businesses and connect you with the right people. I'm your host and Phoenix Business RadioX ambassador, Kendra Maples. Oh, that was a mouthful this morning. I am so excited to have you gentlemen in here today. I have Matt Archer, that is the league commissioner for Arizona Cactus Football League, and Jesse Burke, which is the individual who does the media and marketing PR for Arizona Cactus Football League. So I was looking up some information about the league on the website, but I figure the best way to start this off is for you guys to tell us a little bit about the league, and then I do at some point want to talk about you guys in particular and your background, because you both have other things going on.
Oh, yeah.
And other jobs and careers. So Matt, let's start with you.
Well, thanks for having us. I'm excited to be here. This is something that me and Jesse have talked about for quite a while, just getting on the air and building our media presence for the league. A little history about the league. Semi-Pro's been around for probably 30 plus years across the country. It's been in Arizona roughly from the late 80s, probably into current. There's been from leagues come and go. There's been some good leagues that have popped up and for various reasons have kind of slowed down or shut down. And I was in one of those leagues. I owned a team for a couple years with my business partner that owns the league with me. So him and I have been in the trenches together on the football field, playing offense together, running a team, coaching the team, running the businesses, simultaneously. And so we just felt it could be done better at every level, not just from the facilities, but also from the front structure of the ownerships, and just make it to where it's not just the NFL and the NCAA. That's kind of, I think, the misconception with the semi-pro is that, semi-pro doesn't mean semi-professional. That's kind of like my quote to a lot of guys that I talk to about what we're trying to accomplish here. Yes, it's a pay to play, and so it's guys pay us to be in the league, but that doesn't mean that we can't be as professional and as top-notch as we can possibly get at this level. So if I go on a tangent, just stop me, turn me back direction. I'm all over the place when it comes to the league. So we sat down, me and Raphael, during our second season of owning the team, the Arizona Spartans, who's still currently a team in our league now. And we spent a year analyzing the numbers. I have a whiteboard in my office. It's about this big, and we had 8 of those. We would fill it up, take a picture of it, and erase it and start over. So we did that for about 6 months together, and we just put together a solid business plan of how we were going to fix the problems that we currently had, and then what we identified is what the problems were from a player standpoint, from a fan standpoint, from an owner standpoint, from the league ownership, and all of that stuff. So in the process of that, we figured out that if we ran it like a real business, everybody would win.
Nice.
All the players would get what they wanted. The team owners would get what they wanted. The facilities would get paid, and they would get what they wanted. And at the same time, we could build something to help players that are coming out of high school that can't go to JUCO. There's no more JUCO football in Arizona. Well, there was last year a little bit, but it wasn't tied to any schools per se. So now we've got all these high school kids that were planning on going to local community colleges don't have football programs now.
Gotcha.
So that was something that we kind of started seeing right towards the tail end of our business model plan to put together. So that was one of the things we wanted to fix, keep giving these kids opportunities, because a lot of inner city kids, they don't have all the resources that, say, the outer lining cities have with fundraising, boosters, and things like that. So side note, that's why I'm excited about this, because I want to be able to connect with people in Phoenix and all over the valley, in the state, for that matter. We have teams in Tucson too. And I'll talk about Cam Gaddis here in a little bit, but we want to get more businesses and more people involved to do the resources and not just give us money. Like I'm really looking more for time. I'd mentor some of these kids that don't have that solid founding family or that background, teach them on how to be good people of society, how to win effectively. And then when you do lose, try to figure out how to overcome those challenges. And for me, it's, I'm one person and we have over 1,000 people within our league, whether it's players, fans, coaches. I mean, there's that many people. I can't do that all myself.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the mission And in that process, we realized we got to be on TV. Like, we have to get this out. And that's where Jesse comes in. And, actually Jesse chased me down a couple emails, some phone calls. I didn't reply to him. I didn't have time for that. And finally, me and my partner were like, we really got to look into this. So we reached out to, got back with Jesse, had a meeting at Applebee's, I think it was.
Yeah.
At that time with our current, who is partner who's no longer with us, but that marketing. And Jesse, what do you want? What do you want to do? Well, I have a broadcasting degree. I want to do this. Perfect. I'm not paying you a lot of money. It's going to be very minimal, a lot of hard work. Jesse said, great. So that's been kind of not gratification, but the solidification that what we're doing is working, because we're not only just a developmental league for football players, it's for broadcasters, for media people, for, coaches, business owners, small businesses trying to get their feet off the ground to have somewhere to go. I know the food truck industry is big. It's a lot of money to be in those venues. Last year, we didn't charge our food people anything. We just said, hey, just promise you'll be here from time to time and we're good to go. Cool. So Jesse's taking it, the media department and all of that stuff by storm. So it's exciting to see that part grow. And, there's a lot of advantages to what we're doing. We have teams all over the state. So we have 2 in Tucson right now. There's roughly 30 teams in the state spread out through the 2 leagues that are currently active. Our league is by far the top notch, in my opinion, not just because I own it, but just from the forward down.
Biased. That's
that helps us, insight a little bit.
Go ahead, Jesse. Yeah. I talk forever, so
that's okay.
No worries.
Chime in, bud.
So, Jesse, then what drew you to this league to be able to essentially sell?
To be part of it? Yes. So I was from the outside looking in as well. I actually had a friend that was on one of the teams, the Phoenix Outlaws. I went there. I went to a couple of his games, and I was interested just for a chance to see my friend get back into football, something that he previously was a basketball player in college, and he was trying to make that transition. And unfortunately with football, it's really hard to just, it's not basketball. You can't go to the gym and practice. You can't always work on your craft. You really need a full functioning game to show not only your opponents, but yourself that you're able to still play this game. So I had a friend that joined the league and he was playing and I supported him with that. And then throughout the games, I saw a big crowd. I saw interest and I kind of saw an opportunity there. Like Matt said, I was always pursuing a career in broadcasting and journalism and things like that. And my opportunities were small as well. So I, as he said, always, got in his ear and reached out and said, hey, is there any media opportunities? I would love to be part of it, regardless if it's just writing articles or just being the pseudo media guy. And, patience, I guess, was key in this factor because he got back to me and here we are a year and a half later.
Yeah. So it's been fun. Jesse's, we started out with him and another player that was playing in the league at the same time who happened to have a child. So it kind of didn't work out. And he said, hey, I got this friend that went to school with me. He's doing the same thing. I said, all right, you figure it out, Jesse. I'm not going to. Next thing you know, man, I kind of poked at him one day. I said, hey, I think he's going to pass you up if you don't get with it. So it was a fun transition to watch him and Gabe work together, in analyzing the games and our live stream. And so that's kind of where my business growth is right now for the league. The teams are in, players are there, they're registered and they're playing. I mean, we have our all-star game tomorrow. Our champion, the Calvary Lions, are headed to Vegas tonight. They might already be there, I think.
Yeah, some players are traveling up,
but they're playing in the national tournament against another state winner.
Is that the article that I read, Jesse, of yours, one of the ones that's posted on the website, that you have multiple teams that join together to make a team for Arizona?
Yep.
And then go and...
So, yeah, there's 2 games being played tomorrow. One of them is the national championship game, which is the Colorado Greyhawks versus the Lions, which was the league champions of our league. And then, yes, there's an elite team, which is taking the best of our league to play against a combination of Texas and California All-Stars.
Yeah.
And they're playing at the same stadium that the national championship game is.
So our All-Star game, I think, is 10 in the morning, and then the champions at 7 o'clock tomorrow night in Vegas.
Very cool. And then what happens after all of that? They win, or they move on.
I guess they get to go on social media and brag about the national champ.
They post a lot of pictures.
That's something that's been on the books for a while with just me and my partners is, what happens, all right, the NFL, you win the Super Bowl, you're the champs for the next 12 months. The problem with semi-pro, I don't always call it a problem, but one of the things that comes up is every state has 1 or 2 multiple leagues. there's no true governing body that manages all of them. Like the NFL manages all the teams in the actual NFL. So that was something we worked into our business model, is to let's conquer Arizona first. Let's get everything ironed out. Let's phase out the other leagues that just aren't doing what they need to do, is empty promises and all that other stuff. And once we have that ironed out, then we can move into the kids programs, the high school programs, the junior high programs, which Cam Gaddis out of Tucson, he's a good friend of mine. I met him through this semi-pro football. He plays arena for the Sugar Skulls down there. And he has a flag league that we partnered with to start an adult flag league, but now we're transitioning into 7-on-7 high school kids. So that's a huge thing that I'm looking with him in the background right now, trying to get those travel teams put together. And what that does is that gives those kids the opportunity to keep working outside of the regular football season, if that makes sense. So they're continuous, like Jesse was saying, basketball player can go shoot baskets every day.
Yeah.
Football player, you have to have 2 or 3, 5, 6, 20 people at a workout to really get the full effect of getting better. And with Cam's goals and driven in what he's trying to do, we see that opportunity to basically, I'm going to steal this from somebody, but Pop Warner to Pro Bowl. That's kind of the vision of another company in Seattle, that they do that now. They take kids from 10 years old and start grooming them to go all the way up into college, to the combine and so forth. So I'm trying to take that similar mindset and apply it here in Arizona.
So what is that 7? You said 7 and 7.
It's 7-on-7. So it's a passing league, but it's like the elite of the passing, if that makes sense. There's no lineman. You're not wearing pads. You just basically have a jersey. Some kids wear like cushion helmets just for concussion protocols, but it's basically a passing league to get better with your coordination and your talent, your skill, and how to read defenses and offenses and all that different various stuff. And that's been kind of the new trend, I guess, is going. So you're not playing tackle just nonstop for 18 or 13 years before you go to college. You can take a break and still continue to get better. And that transitions to the actual football field when you get into college.
Gotcha. Okay.
And then our next goal after that is to hopefully have actual Pop Warner leagues.
And what will that look like?
That I'm not sure yet. There's so many in the Valley. That's one thing like Jesse said, the opportunities are very slim there. There's a lot of leagues already established, a lot of kids programs already been around for years. So for me to try to just step into that market without really understanding how it fully works wasn't my first objective. Understanding how semi-pro and adults work, that's something I can do. So we focus there, and we're going to start working our way down, the younger ages to continue. And then hopefully 10 years from now, we'll be able to say, yeah, that kid went through our program. He's now going to ASU and is going to be drafted in the first, or whatever that looks like. So
that's awesome. So these are all part of those markers and those goals as you work on this league.
Oh, absolutely.
What other overall goals do you have with this?
To be the best in
some, but
to be the best in the country. I think a lot of people want to be the biggest. And that was kind of my main goal when I first started, was to be the biggest league. But after this last year and a half, it's like, I want to be the best. It doesn't have to be the biggest.
So what does that look like? What's the difference? I mean,
difference is, I think,
not
having
focused on numbers, but
well-established teams, programs that people can actually go to that get the training versus just showing up and playing football. And that kind of gets into the down negative side of the league.
Right.
But it's trying to change that mindset of 30 years of a certain way of doing things. And now we're trying to change it to where we want our players to go to college. We want them to go to arena ball overseas. Daniel Smith, he just got done finishing his college career. He was on my team 2 seasons ago, took us to the championship, got a full ride to a D school in Alabama, won championship his first year. He's headed back home in a few weeks. So the season's over. And now he's like, Matt, what do I do now? Let's get on the phone, man. We got to get some tryouts. Like, we want to help him continue to pursue that. But in order to do that, we have to be the best. Like, nobody's going to talk to us if we're kind of doing things half-ass, I guess, if that's the best way to put it. It has to be the best product, you know? So that's the difference, is making sure that we're professional, our website, our media, everything. And we're still growing. That's kind of been the biggest challenge, is the NFL's been around 100 years. They have billions of dollars in marketing and advertisement. It's really just Jesse.
And that was the issue with some of the other leagues that have failed. We saw it last year. There was a league, and Matt forecasted this. There was a league called the AAF, the Alliance American Football League, I believe it's called.
Okay.
And a lot of guys that just weren't able to make it in the NFL, or kind of past that window of opportunity, played in this league. And Matt said it won't last a year. And in fact, it died halfway through. It filed bankruptcy.
Oh, wow.
I think their biggest issue is knowing their opponent, so to speak. They tried too much to say, oh, we're the new NFL. We're the new better league. And like Matt was saying, it's kind of David versus Goliath in that sense. You're not going to compete with the NFL. They're there, right? So I think one thing that we focus on is branding ourselves as a different entity. No, not to say that it's the NFL versus us. It's us, and then there's the NFL if you're good enough. Mm-hmm. So I think something, me personally, and being on the same page with Matt, a lot of our branding idea is, like he was saying, to be the best, not necessarily be better, but to be acknowledged as the league. So to give you an idea of like when people say, I'm going to take a cab, they don't say that anymore. They say Uber or take a Lyft, right? Just that idea of like, if there's a player and he's working to the league, people name drop our league as that spot. Like, oh, you play in the CFL, opposed to where do you play, semi-pro, whatever it is. We're trying to just be established that we are here. We're not necessarily better than the NFL. We're not a certain gateway from if you play in this league, then you're automatically in our league. But we want to be established that this is a path for players, not necessarily just the end result and they couldn't go anywhere else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think it fits every level: coaching, the media department, ownership. Like I've owned a few businesses over the last few years. The league and my engineering firm, those are my two focuses right now. And so it allows us to give those opportunities to some guys that just don't know. Mm-hmm. They don't understand how this works. And my hiatus a little bit on my soapbox is like, they got to be held accountable. That's probably the most reason why everybody fails at anything, is they don't hold themselves accountable or to a certain standard. And it's been a challenge because I'm trying to change the mindset of a culture that's been around for 30 plus years and bring in a different, before it was a lot of buddy system. It was a lot of scratching the back and, oh, it's okay. No, like we're running this as a legit business because that's what the NFL is doing. That's what the colleges look at. When they call you and ask you about a player, they don't want to hear that he got in a fight or he comes to the games high. Like they want to know. And if you allow that as an organization, they're not even going to call you. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the, to prelude, it's like we want to be the best. Like, oh, you played in CFL? We know the standards of what Arizona Developmental Football League is now. And, we've been recognized on a lot of national platforms. Being our first year, we have leagues from other states calling us to basically consult with them on how to revamp their leagues.
Right.
As great as feeling that is, I don't think we're ready. And that might come off negative, but I think there's a lot of work that we still have to establish before we can say we have the best product.
Yeah. But to already have some of these other leagues recognizing and calling to contact you guys and see, okay, well, we can see that you're obviously doing this well. Yeah. How can we do this?
Yeah.
But that you also recognize that there's still a lot of growth. But I think the way that you're looking at it as running a business is the best way to focus this.
Yeah.
And that's going to lead to the success and the growth and the way that you guys are doing this.
Well, without us, it's basically an organized pickup league.
Yeah.
It's guys at a park with helmets. Mm-hmm. We're trying to make it more special than that. We're trying to give it, because football in itself, it's a big commitment. We speak on the fact that these guys outside of football have 9-to-5 jobs. They have families. They have wives. They have other commitments, and they put their body on the line, as football being one of the most cutthroat sports. Mm-hmm. And it's for themselves and for those that show up. So we're trying to provide a platform for it to be worth it.
Yeah, I was going to say, to be worth it.
And I think that going with Matt was saying about when players or people get interviews or possible looks at from other leagues or other teams, think of it from a college standpoint. When they look at a kid that went to a certain high school, it's not necessarily just their winning record. Oh, they won 10 games? Yeah, we'll bring them on. They look at also how the school organizes and handles their kids. And it comes with their discipline, how, they make the kids have, curfews, and they have a specific code of conduct that they follow when they're in that school. That also plays a big role. So with that, we don't care. We do care about the team and the ability of the players, but we also want them to represent the league in a way that when they call and they speak to Matt or they speak to myself and they say, hey, do you know about Cam Gaddis? Do you know about Andrew Jones? Do you know about these players? we have a way to present them in a good light instead of just, he could tackle somebody really well. We need a platform for them to not only be shown, but shown in a great light.
Yeah. And you can give a little more than, he tackles people.
Yeah. Exactly.
How does it work with these individuals balancing full-time jobs and families and then this? Because when it is the NFL, it's usually just they're a football player.
Right. Mm-hmm.
They don't have to worry about another job that's going to pay bills.
I think that's what separates the player from the athlete, if that makes sense. So as a player, you show up, you play. An athlete, and I'll use Cam as the perfect example. There's multiple ones throughout the league, but Cam literally working nonstop. He has a full-time job, but any minute he's not training his students or his athletes, his kids, not working, he's doing the actual things himself. And I think that's what separates those two from someone that just plays in our league versus somebody that really wants to go somewhere. And how they balance that, it's rough. Mm-hmm. Some of them do, some of them don't. You can tell the ones that put in the extra time outside of practices and the ones that come to game days ready to play. And then you have the guys that show up that are eating hot dogs walking to the field, in their uniform. So, but for me, why should I allow the 80 players on the field that don't care to affect the 5 that do? Mm-hmm. So to me, I'm looking at a different way. The 80 players need to step up and be at a higher standard to help these other kids or these young men go where they want to go. And I think that's kind of where I'm coming from, is I hold these guys to a higher standard because it comes from the top down. Mm-hmm. And that's no matter where you go, any job, any business, anything you do, if the front office or the top of the chain is a mess, the entire organization will be a mess below that. So we've been working on implementing those standards so these kids are prepared for that. You couldn't go to Alabama and go in Nick Saban's program with the same mindset you come to this developmental league with. You won't even get into the stadium as a fan with that type of mentality. So for us, it's being a better product, just being better so they understand, hey, this is where you're trying to go is a lot different than it is here.
Yeah.
So for us, it's giving them that kind of, I don't want to say wake up call, but okay, so I can't just show up and drink a fifth in the car and and kind of have that recreational style mentality. Because that's not who I am. Mm-hmm. So, and the flip coin is there's a lot of players that have already played in high school. They've already done the arena route. They just like to hit people. Andrew Jones is a perfect example. I think he just turned 31 this year. Played a little bit in college, got in trouble. His cousin is actually in the NFL. His direct cousin, Marvin Jones on the lines, a big player. And he just said, I want to give to these kids that I don't want them to make the same mistakes I did. Mm-hmm. And that's something I think from a mentor standpoint is I'm trying to be who I needed 15 years ago. And working with Jesse, and I remember having that conversation, was like, hey, I'm not your friend. You work for me and that's it. Now I consider him my friend. I listen to his podcast. You
crossed the line.
Yeah. So
I say I work for you and that's it. And that's
and that's kind of, I think, the different way, just, on a little side note with the players and the businesses, like if you don't establish those guidelines right up front, you'll never get them back. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the mentality we're trying to change. And that's why I want to work with businesses and try to get them incorporated into the league, just like, and the Cardinals have top names in the state. Mm-hmm. Well, us little guys like myself who only, 2-man show in their company, or they run a food truck with, the husband and wife, they can't pay the $50,000 a game fee to go stand in the Cardinals. Mm-hmm. So why can't we give them that opportunity? I'm more interested in talking to small businesses than big ones. Like, I know the money's in the big ones. I know that's where you get the notoriety, but I don't want to talk to those people. Like, I want to talk to the mom and pop people that just like me and my business partner.
Yeah.
Like that. Those are the people that we try to cater to. Like this year we have 2 new food people coming in. We have a out of your garage, like I'll call it a trunk company, an apparel guy that's going to come in and do shirts at the games. So those are some of the things we're working on. With our facility at Cortez High School in Phoenix, they're struggling to get a lot of their facilities upgraded. So that's been something we've done as a league, is to try to help them make those connections and also donate our time and energy to help the facility be better, not just give the money to the district and call it a day.
Yeah.
So that's something that I'm focusing on this year too, is to make those connections to help those high school kids out, to get those fans and to get those boosters and to put those business packages on the table for them, so the businesses get to say they're there and have their banners, but also the kids get to, somebody actually cares about who was on that field with them.
Yeah.
So
I love that. And I love the the fact that you want to support those smaller local businesses, the mom and pop, especially here in Arizona. That's, I feel, something that we do a really good job at, actually, is supporting the smaller businesses, the local businesses, and giving them the opportunity to actually showcase in the area.
Yeah.
I
think until you own a small business, you don't understand the impact of how much that means to somebody when you go to a craft show and you buy that jelly, that jar of jelly from them for $8, and you're like, God, $8. But at the end of the day, it's like,
for the good.
I saw, something small business, puts that little girl through college. I have 4 daughters, no sons. So I'm right there. It's like, and
you buy that jar of jelly from the individual that's usually at the table is also the CEO, the founder, the plumber, the packager.
And that's a dynamic that I also I used to broadcast ASU football back in college, and I have friends now that were on the team and now gone the NFL route and have now lives after football. A big dynamic I heard from them was at times it was a us versus them dynamic with the coaches and the league, as you know, and it's an ongoing issue, a whole different conversation if college players should get paid or not, right? A lot of their, I guess, discouragement was that regardless of how we perform, the upper management's going to get paid and they don't really care about us. Something that we're trying to change that dynamic is with these guys putting in the time they have outside of their 9-to-5 lives and families. It's same with us. They have practices on a Wednesday at 8:00 at night. Matt's there. He's got his 3 daughters. They're going crazy. And he's, managing it. Same with us. And that's something that we're trying to flip to the players and say, hey, guys, the reason why we get on you for being professional and getting this projected into the bigger light is because we're on the same page. It's not like we're secretly working for this league that's paying us and we wish you the best. We're truly wanting you guys to grow so we can grow. And I feel like at times, and I see it a lot of times, Matt puts in a lot of effort and, at times, there's not the show out he would expect, or maybe the representation of professionalism at times where he feels like, come on, like I'm putting in 1,000%, give me at least 100. And that's something that especially this year, this is my second full year being in the league, something I'm going to implore on the players is the better I strive to make myself with this media and journalism world, I'm bringing you guys with me because without you guys, I'm writing articles about nothing.
Yeah.
So that's something that I feel like is something that's a new dynamic is we're bridging that gap between the media guys, the league officials, and the league, where in every other sports league, there's a distinct separation between.
And to piggyback, it without them, there is no us, and without us, there's no them. So that's kind of a misconception that I think as we launched our league and 2 of them shut down and the other one's hanging on to compete against us, the players are starting to see that. I truly believe in my heart that they're, as a collective whole, they're realizing that we are doing this for them. You're always going to have the naysayers. That's just life. That's just anything you do. You're going to have that percentage of just that no matter what you do, they're not going to be happy. But I want to focus on those guys that are happy, that are using the huddle. I mean, we give these guys film of every game. Every play is broke down into huddle. I'm not if you're familiar with huddle or not. It's a sports program where you can upload videos and you can analyze and make comments and do stats, and it's all geared towards football.
Oh, wow.
And that's how a lot of these players get their films out. They take those clips of the games that they were in and they create a highlight film and it gets sent. And I mean, high schools do it, colleges. So that's part of their player package. Then when they sign up for the league is they have those huddles for the games. Now, do we go through and do it? No. We give them their password and their username. You go, if you really want to get noticed, like Daniel did, he spent hours creating his highlight films, and not even highlight films, just game footage, good and bad. And he marketed himself. And then when I got the phone call, I put the word in that, yes, I would vouch for him and I want him to succeed and he'd be a good fit for your program, etc. And then there's some players that just like to create highlight films just so they can show off, I guess, which I love that. I mean, it's fun. It's competitive. It creates that rivalry. And then there's some players that they don't care. So, but like I said, why should I let those 5 that are trying to go to college suffer because the other ones just don't care? So we give them that. We also give them stats. So within our website with Sports Engine, each player registers for the league. Then they get a profile created, and then we can assign stats based off the game footage. So they have those true stats, or at least I wouldn't call them true, but at least something they can show somebody versus just trying to figure out exactly what they think they figured out.
Yeah.
So, and then on top of that, we try to have a consistent schedule. We try to be, constant is probably the best word I think I could say. So
with the growth and the progression of you guys really focusing on a business
mm-hmm.
and a business as a whole, that all of these individuals are essentially stakeholders, right? It's not just, well, I'm the coach, I coach this team, these are the players, they do what I tell them,
mm-hmm.
but it's really everybody is involved and everybody has a role in this.
Correct.
How have you seen kind of any changes with people being reluctant to evolve with this process? Or, you said you've got some individuals that maybe don't care and you don't want them to take away from everybody else, but how has that transition been?
It was rough
Mm-hmm.
in the beginning. And to not throw too much shade at the other individuals that have run the leagues in the past, but there was just a lot of shady stuff going on. But they would pay for stuff. Refs weren't getting paid. Facilities weren't getting taken care of. So we'd show up and there wouldn't be no game. There'd be no ref. So it was just a lot of where's everything going? So for me, I don't divulge the exact financials of the league, but I have no problem showing them receipts for things we paid for or giving them the general cost of how everything's ran.
Mm-hmm.
Our bylaws are on the website, so you can read through there and just kind of figure out the general guidelines and rules that we try to follow and implement and certain things. And so I think our first season had a rough spot because we had an incident with a couple of teams, which kind of challenged who we were as a league. And for that first couple of weeks after that, it was rough. But I think looking back now, almost 6 months, everybody agreed it was the right move. Everybody, can understand why we did that. And it also showed a lot of these people that were skeptical. Is the league really going to hold to what they say they're going to do?
Yeah.
And I think that's where the challenge for me is. I tell these guys all the time, either you're coming with me or you get left behind.
Yeah.
I don't drag nobody. So either you can hang on and the train's leaving. So you figure out if you're going to stay at the station or get on. But I'm not going to keep the train here. That's something that, some players have had a hard time dealing with. Hey, you know what? There's another league for you to play in.
Yeah.
Nobody's forcing you to be here.
And I feel a lot of these players do kind of, they don't have that, I guess, like that wake up call, like you were saying, is not to belittle our league. Some of these guys are in our league because this is their only option.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a group chat on Facebook that I try to stay away from because it's all toxic, but it's players oriented. It's them, just talking smack to each other. Mm-hmm. One thing that I wish that, and it's not every player, but if they would understand that football or any industry, they want to know what you've done lately and how you're continuing to build your resume. Mm-hmm. I feel a lot of our players, and unfortunately the better ones, kind of dwell on their morals and they dwell on the fact that they were really good in high school or they did something great one time. Whereas all that matters is what's done recently or that last year. Yeah. And I feel like there should be more humility. Mm-hmm. And if they're able to big up and support the players that they're competing with, it'll make them look better. I feel at times there's too much of I'm better than you. Look at me, look what I've done instead of look what's going on currently.
Yeah.
And if there was more internal, I guess, praise and growth from that side, then you would see it. Because if players from other leagues look and then they see teammates barking at each other and how they're not as good as the next guy, that doesn't say much for opposing leagues. Whereas if you look and you see guys going, wow, man, you're really hard to tackle. Like, good job on the off season. Teams are going to be afraid to play us.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that something that you can change?
Oh, yeah. Jesse's already started doing that, just with the articles and trying to highlight some of those key players. And I'm thankful he does it out of his sweat equity. Mm-hmm. So I really let him, I told him, hey, there's a few players I want to cover at some point in the next few months. You just decide how you want to handle all of that stuff. And I'm never afraid to give people credit where credit's due. And my partner and him, my partner does a lot of the Facebook stuff with the posters and all of that sort of thing. And then Jesse handles the media side of it and getting the articles written, going to practices and that's something I'm hoping to have him start working on, is when we start bringing in some businesses to also go to those events and to figure those things out too, and how we highlight them, as well as, you know, where we're at with the players and all of that. And I'm not in that particular group he's talking about for that same exact reason.
Yeah.
Because I tend to, you know, as most people do, you're a product of your environment. So for me, I'm trying to change the environment for these players so their products are better. Mm-hmm. And so far, I wouldn't say it's a super great, but it's definitely on the right track. We're leaps and bounds ahead of where I thought we would be finishing our season in May. Looking into the future, you know, we're wanting to build our own actual facility. That's one of our biggest goals, I think, for the league in the next 5-year plan, is to have our own actual field. And not just one field, but 10 to 20 of actual football fields.
Wow.
So there's a big picture that we've identified, and we've had some interest. The problem is, a lot of these people we talk to, they're just concepts. They're just an idea on a piece of paper, and we're already a business. You know, we've put money through our account. We have our tax. Like, we do everything we need to do. We rent our facilities, pay our bills. But if we could run our league year round, that gives really me and Jesse and a few other people a full-time job now, to not have to try to do this on nights and weekends anymore. It gives us, and not only that, it gives kids opportunities for jobs. I didn't even touch base on that. Like, our chain gang, a lot of our field staff is from the school or the surrounding schools. We have a partnership with a little, what would you call those guys at Western High School?
Interns?
No, like the school itself. It's like a charter school almost.
Okay.
Like the preparatory.
Yeah, it's like a preparatory.
Where the field is that you guys use?
No, it's just a school that we have partnered with. So they play 8-man football, which is a little bit smaller field, a little more dynamics, less people on the field, but they are our main chain gang. So one thing that we do as a league is we pay every single one of those kids for each game. Half of the money goes to the school for their booster program, and the other half they get cash at the end of the day.
That's awesome. So
it helps us, right? We get to write it off. What's a write-off? Yeah. Just as from the business standpoint.
Yeah, absolutely.
The community standpoint, these kids now have a job, so they're held accountable to times and all that stuff. Show up on time, what you're supposed to do, you know, and then they get to make a little money. And then the flip side, the third problem I get, or not problem, but the third asset is now the school gets some money for their football program. We do the same thing with the actual high school. We allow their booster club come in and run the concession stands. That's something I try to negotiate with the facility rentals, is we'll let your booster club come in and do the concessions. If it doesn't work, we'll pull it back and we'll put ours in here to make sure that we actually have, because the fans are upset if there's not sodas and hot dogs.
Yeah.
You'd be amazed at how.
So is the broadcaster.
So, and the field staff who's there for 12 hours for that day. So, so there's those kind of bartering system things that we try to work on. That's the relationship we have at Cortez. We pay a kind of a reduced rate for the field rental, but we give a lot back to the actual school.
Yeah. Then me personally, I just like sports, you know, you learn by competing with others and growing with others. I had a radio show with my co-host Gabe. We had a year and a half long show at ASU, and we always told ourselves, like, hey, if one of us gets an opportunity to broadcast again, let's support the other one and get him on. And Gabe has, taken the baton and has been sprinting ever since. And, he's upped my game with the articles and going out to practice, and has motivated me to get back to where I was. One thing I will say that brings me up and helps me elevate my game is there are the interns and the students at the game, and I have some run the clock, or some will run just like extra stats, or if I can't, I don't have the best eyes, and if someone points something out, they'll help me out. And personally speaking, as someone pursuing the broadcasting and journalism career, the odds have always been stacked against me. I put myself through college. I worked 50 hours a week outside of school on top of my radio show. And a lot of the places that I applied for would ask me, hey, can you be here 9 to 5 unpaid? And I'd say no. And unfortunately, the kids I would compete against had, as I call it, the mommy and daddy scholarship. And they were able to just have their rent paid, have their school paid, and then, I can be there 9 to 5 unpaid, no problems. So I never really had a chance to compete with these kids because they had these extra abilities. So I want to present and provide an opportunity for kids that fall in the same struggle and say, hey, I would love to broadcast, but I'm competing with the kid that goes to a private high school that has a dad that's in the network and he bought me a new Mercedes, things like that. So I'm trying to get an opportunity where I can have kids come up in between quarters. I can show him some, microphone technique, tell him why I said this word over that, show him my style, and get a kid in line to compete with those that are on, privileged and have a chance to just walk into a station and get handed a job where some of these kids have to fight for it.
I absolutely love that.
And it's the same thing with the owners. I don't want to take any of the credit for the teams themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Only thing I do is hold their owners accountable. Everything you see on the teams, good or bad, is a direct reflection of those owners. We have some owners that they do it out of the kindness of their heart. They pay for pretty much everything. They do not get paid. There's only probably 3 teams in the league that actually make some sort of black at the bottom of the end of the season. Most of them are always in the red. But because of their upbringings and their passion for football and helping the players get those opportunities, they do it. That's how I got into it. I just wanted something to do to mentor some men because all I have is daughters, which, don't get me wrong, I love my kids. But it's hard to have some of those kind of conversations with your daughter when it should be directed for, a son. So just giving those guys that opportunity to grow and, like Jesse, hey, dude, whenever you can, if you commit to 1 article a week, I don't care when you write it, what it's about, just that's the commitment that we agreed. So that's the same thing with the owners. It's like, hey, I don't care how many practices you guys have. This year we did something that's never been heard of. We put a player cap in place. It's just similar to the NFL. Okay. So the teams are only allowed 50 players now. Last year,
or 15?
50. Last year we had a few teams with 65, 70 players, and then some with like 13.
The NFL has around 53 to give you an idea.
The max, yeah.
Okay. There's 11 on each side, offense and defense.
Yeah, but 53 players in the NFL, like on the sidelines, active players. Gotcha. So we're trying to spread out the talent base, where we basically forcing some of these players to not just stand on the sideline to get a ring. And what it also is doing is making our owners be a little more strategized and understand and how to manage those players, right? Because you only get 50. You can't can't have 70 and 20 don't pay or 20 don't show up. So you have this, now it's kind of an accountability thing. Mm-hmm. I think it's going to make our games a lot more competitive because now instead of having 60 on one side and 12 on the other, have 35 and 30. Like it'll spread it out a little bit.
Yeah, they're going to have to up their game too. These coaches and these owners are going to have to make sure, like you said, that they're quality players.
Yeah, they have to. Yeah, exactly. They have to actually analyze who's on their field.
Mm-hmm.
There's and then naturally, when a team wins a championship, a lot of players want to join that squad so they can have. I don't want to say easier path, but they think it's going to be like a repeat. Mm-hmm. So hey, let me just leave the team I was building a career with just because this team got where I want to be. Mm-hmm. But that happens in all aspects of sports, So
and fortunate for us, the owner of the Calvary Lions is him and I are on the same wavelength when it comes to just all different aspects of life. So he was very supportive of that. And he's got players that are, I won't play in the league if I'm not on your team. And unfortunately, we have to tell him, well, you will be in the league because you want to play football. So they haven't accepted that fact yet, but they will come January when the season's a few weeks away and they're still not on a team and there's teams still looking for players. So, but it also forces the owners to be able to put things in place to manage it. Mm-hmm. And that's probably the biggest challenge as an owner is when you got 70 guys, you got to keep track of their money, their jersey, practices, you got coaches, you're really running a full-time business.
Yeah. And is it just them running that team?
Usually pretty much every team has 1 to 2 owners and that's it.
Okay.
There's a few nonprofits that are structured with 4 or 5 different people, but as far as what they actually do, I'm not sure how the workloads are split up. I know for the Lions, Ben does a lot of the stuff by himself, him and his wife, Heather. So me and Raph, we did all of our stuff by ourselves. We had full staff. We had 6 coaches and we had a GM for the team and we had, the team mom and we had all that stuff. But in order to make things where we wanted it to be when we owned the Spartans, we had to take full control. And that's pretty much how the league is set up. Me and Raph control everything. And everybody from there down is either works for us or has paid to be in the league. And the one great thing about the league is the teams are free to come and go. So we charge them a yearly franchise fee that covers the field rentals. So they're guaranteed we all have fields. We all play at pretty much the same place. So we're not spread out all over. Like California, they all have their own fields. So you may have 10 games going on at 10 different locations.
Oh, wow.
Here we have 4 at one and 4 at the other, and then we have our Tucson. So you can go pay $5 to get in. At 10 o'clock at the game, you can watch 4 football games for $5.
Nice.
So that's something that, but you're at high school, so you're in the bleachers. So a lot of people bring bleacher seats and, let's not kid ourselves. It's not the NFL yet, but
it's still fun.
If you're into football and we're in from February to May.
Okay.
So our season starts the week after the Super Bowl.
Okay.
So there is no other football going on. There's no American football. So it's that's like our niche right now that we're trying to solve. And that's what the AF tried to do. Failed miserably. Now we got the XFL coming out, which is a revamp of something that tried in the 90s. So same thing. I'm predicting it's done in a year because they're trying to compete against the NFL. And like Jesse said, I know our opponents. We're not there yet. We're not even close to that. NFL teams have been in families for generations.
And we wouldn't want to take away from, that's not even that's not even our goal is to be the NFL. Our goal is, like I said, to be it separate. It's a separate entity. I guess this is a unique reference, but how there's military, there's Army, Navy, and different sectors. We're just trying to be the CFL, different sector of football.
Yeah.
I like that. But you guys have a good niche with the timing, like you said, not being when all of the other professional games are taking place. And
the one great thing about having Jesse and Gabe and our live stream and all of that is a lot of everybody in Arizona, myself included, my man here, we're all transplants. My wife was born here. And my previous wife. But other than that, I don't know anybody else that was born in Arizona that's still here.
Very unique thing.
So
what do they call them? Phoenicians?
Yeah,
if they're
Phoenicians. Yeah.
That's a bird, right? A Phoenician.
So Raph's mom, she lived in Missouri at the time. She didn't get to see him play football. So he'd have to make his little highlight film, send it to her. She's not an internet person, so it was like, dude, I just want to be able to send her a link on my phone. She clicks on it and she can watch the games. So last year we did Facebook Live. This year we went to a new platform called Mixer and working with SDTV, who is our production company. We're going to hopefully bring 2 games a week now instead of 1. We actually are going to start working on some of that stuff I talked about earlier. Just the live stream weekly show. I want to get Jess and Gabe kind of do like a highlight of previous games that weekend, the ones coming up, similar to what all the different professional sports do, weekly shows, and bring on players and different businesses, something similar to what you guys have here, just focused towards our league and how we're helping the high schools. And, is there an upcoming student that's coming up that's, unsigned at a college, like he's projected to be in the CFL this year, but we got to get him to college. We can't have him here. And I'm not afraid to walk away from that, if that makes sense. I would rather that kid go to college than us make the $75 for his registration fee.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, it just gets right back into the players. So if we can help him move on, like Daniel, it's more about just the dollar. But we all know business takes money to run. That's life.
It's life.
But something that we pride on is the business itself will lead into opportunities for those that are involved. So, for example, a lot of our teams have the youth programs where kids can then play for the flag football, for the Pop Warner leagues, and then know that they have a path. And I've seen this in, towns that are really prevalent high school. They have the kids that play for the elementary schools. And then, it's like they're seeing a superhero. They get to go see the high school players. And one day you'll be in that jersey and, it's a big, phenomenon. And that's something that they're trying to, the Southwest Stampede, one of the leagues in our, one of the teams in our league, they have a youth program. The Stampede Youth League. Their pipeline is to make these boys and girls, work their way into the league and then get their way up into playing for the Southwest Stampede. So with that, it gives an opportunity for those to maybe coach Little League, get involved from even field management, from groundskeeping all the way to, like he said, merchandise with uniform apparel or helmets, or even athleticism and personal training. I know a lot of people, especially with the independent media age we have with Instagram and bodybuilders and stuff, people trying to then just be personal trainers for these players instead of getting, granted you need your license and stuff, but without having to go through that, dreaded pipeline of working for like an LA Fitness or something and just being restricted to the clients and their book of business. Whereas this, your nephew is 3 years away from playing tackle football. I'm going to get him in the gym now. You've built yourself a resume. And like I was saying, that's what businesses want to see is what you've done lately. And you can't say, well, yeah, 10 years ago, I helped stretch a kid out and he was a good quarterback. Now they want to say, yeah, I run this youth league and they're undefeated and in large part to, my conditioning.
Yep.
And
go ahead.
So if you had an ask for the areas that you need to maybe fill right now, I mean, you guys have mentioned, you mentioned having kids come on and help with broadcasting and kids running the food booths and all of that and coaches and all of this. Are there still gaps that you need to fill in that growth process? If you were to make your community ask of areas that you needed to fill, are there any?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me is just the opportunities we did the hip hop festival a few weeks ago. SDTV is a big partner in that. So we by no means does our league have anything to do with the underground hip hop industry, but we recognize that a lot of our players do. And so we were like, hey, let's go set up a booth and just get us out there. For me, that's the gap. Finding those opportunities to come, to just set up our pop-up and our table and get our wristbands out and all the different things, our tickets and stuff like that, just so these players are wanting to continue to play. That's probably my biggest gap right now is just the awareness. And that's the 10,000 foot level. Down at the weeds, everything has a gap in it. We really could fill every position that we need help with, but the overall is just the exposure for the league. I know with the JUCO shutting down and all of that stuff happening, AF falling apart with the hot shots, us not getting an XFL team this year. There's a lot, like, people want to continue to play football. And to, go back to the Southwest Stampede, Sean and Nicole Lanzarato, who run and own that team, his sons are 7, 8 years old. So now he's doing youth tackle, youth flag, and he just started a girls flag team with his daughter who's 5.
Awesome.
So he's taking those conversations. The gap is, okay, now how do we get other organizations to fall under our CFL professional umbrella and buy into that dream of taking their youth program over to here. Let's build it and then continue to push this kid at every level. So we don't have a gap in levels. It's basically, do you want to play here or not? So the gap is just getting the awareness out there and really finding those people that actually want to help the kids at any level, elementary, high school, junior high, college. Like I said, don't have any sons. So that's kind of my motivation personally, is to help these kids. I'm the person I wish I had.
Yeah. But your daughters could be on that other team now.
Yeah. Unfortunately, Sean lives in Avondale, which is where his team is, and I live in Santan Valley. So it's about an hour and 50-minute drive. But I've looked into what's growing out there as well as to start that. So it's something that we're looking into as well. Because
that's the only location right now for girls to be involved in.
There's one out and then somewhere in Gilbert, there's a smaller league, which is way closer to me. But it's a new thing coming. Like, that's a new thing, is having girls play football, whether it's flag or rugby. I saw a youth girls rugby team the other day on Facebook, and I got scared. I was like, oh man, like, this is okay. So there's things happening out there that, I kind of get stuck in my hole at my home office, and, it kind of takes guys like Jesse to pull me out and say, hey dude, like, there's something going on in Tempe this week and we have to figure out how to get there.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And that's the gap too, is just being that awareness. You get focused on one thing and then you kind of get lost with what's going on around you. Because of his other business and his other podcast, I get very up to date on what's going on in the world outside of football and engineering. So, those are kind of just the gap. Like, that's where the answer is, just how do we get more events to where we can be part, whether it's serving the homeless in Mesa or it's doing a youth camp. One of our team owners in the Phantoms, Derek Parham, runs the Play 60 for the Cardinals. And a former league owner from a few years ago is the alumni manager for the Cardinals. So a lot of our internal teams are tied to the Cardinals, which is great for us because we get to have that exposure a little bit. Not so much us with them, but we get to see how they do things. Like, I worked the Cardinals games this season, kind of same thing, to see how it's ran and figure out what we can do to make our league better, to try to fit those niches that people just can't afford to maybe go to a Cardinals game or an ASU game. Hey, come watch us play. We're grown men hitting each other. Like, there's no doubt about that. We have 7 refs on the field. We have a scorekeeper, scoreboard. It's as professional as we can get it. So
that's awesome.
Just knowing we're here, that's our biggest thing.
For me, I'd say in this age of technology and social media, we've seen it even from a non-significant level. Anything has the capability of going viral or having a backing.
Absolutely.
So I think for me, the reason why I'm so adamant about pushing the articles or, pushing the Facebook or just getting brand awareness is knowing that it doesn't take much for people to be interested in something. And people love football. They dive for sports. They'll every day, debate till they're blue in the face over hypothetical, is this player from 30 years ago better than this player now? When we have no way to prove that, but we have an actual league to say, hey, what about these guys that you work with or buddy you went to high school with are playing in a league and competing nationally, in Vegas with other teams. So for me, I think it's just the capability of something going viral. I mean, we've seen on Twitter, Instagram, videos of 30 seconds get millions of views. So I'm fully certain that football can get billions of views, and that's just where I'm at. It's not hard. It's not like Matt was saying, we're not making up an imaginary thing where what if a football league where if a guy throws the ball and gets 100 points, like this, manifested thing. We're saying like, hey, you guys watch football. We know you do. You don't shut up about it. So here's more football.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There's really no reason for someone to say no thanks because also playing at the proximity in the local card, people will argue over human beings they've never met and they'll never meet,
right?
But they have the chance to say, hey, my friend Raph is better at football than your friend. And we know this because we just saw it, and these guys interact. That's another thing is these guys, I'll never understand is players or fans fighting over each other over the teams. And then those players are friends in itself and they don't care about the fans. But in our league, the players are friends with the fans. So there actually is a camaraderie and a care. So
there's a definite
I'll never understand grown adults fighting over other adults playing a sport. But that's,
that's pretty
I'm removed from that, I
guess. So we have just a few moments.
Oh, no problem.
Isn't that crazy? It goes so fast.
Time flies.
And I'm so intrigued. I'll be honest, I know nothing about football. I'm in a football league right now, and I pick some winning teams. I read, I pick them. I don't even watch half the games. I'm placed third in my group, though, which is pretty cool.
That's
Congrats.
awesome.
We're not watching it.
If you knew the players, though, you would care a lot
and
more.
And then I could argue about them.
Yeah, exactly.
These people that I've never met before.
And you could text them and say, you cost me $5.
Yeah.
Right?
You won't believe how many of those Facebook messages like, dude, you missed that sack of $20 out of my pocket. Like, and then they're like, I'm getting it at the game on Saturday. It's like, so there's those like kind of backyard, players.
I love it. I'm not that passionate yet, but through this conversation,
we'll get you there.
Right? I'm excited. I really am. And so before we kind of wrap this up, I want to know from each of you through this whole process so far of kind of evolving this league, really, has there been, and I'm sure there's been a lot, but what is one highlight moment that you're like, oh my gosh, that was so cool. This is why I'm doing this. Because like you both said, you're both doing other jobs that are your full-time gig as well. So you're taking time out of your life. Mm-hmm. You've got kiddos, but you're investing into this.
I know a specific moment, so...
Go ahead. I have tons, but let me think on it for a minute.
This one was on the tip of my tongue. Going into the first half of the season, I'll say, and being a broadcaster comes with the territory, you know this, you have to have a thick skin. We allowed the comments to be displayed in our live feed when it came to the Facebook, or when we live streamed the games. So me being my rookie season in this league, a lot of players weren't happy with me. And I feel like that goes endlessly. So I got a lot of negative feedback in the comments about, oh, this guy sucks. He doesn't know football. Who's the guy with the glasses? Endless stuff, right? And I don't let it faze me because I know I'm capable of doing what I do. I wouldn't broadcast ASU if I wasn't good. Things like that. But as the season progressed, I started to get more respect. And I felt that was a really, humbling dynamic. And then towards the end of the season, the championship game, mind you, we wrote an article to kind of give a preview of the game. And it created such a stir of the pot that players from the championship team then came back and contacted me and thanked me for writing the article because it motivated them to win the championship. And at that point in time, I forgot all the negative feedback I got and reminded myself, this is why I'm here.
Yeah. Absolutely. I love that.
I could spend days on those stories. I have two particularly in mind.
Okay.
I'm going to take a lot of junk for this because I already do. But a player that was on my team my first year, his dad was taken from him when he was 2, and his mom was taken from him when he was 19. So rough life. Him and I have totally different walks of life. I grew up, both my parents lived kind of in a farm area. He grew up in the inner city, foster parents, things like that. And the moment that did it was when him and I started going to, after practice, we would go eat food. We'd go to the local, just a fast food joint by the practice field. And we got to have those conversations with, like we're doing now, with nobody else around. It was just us. And watching him go from basically mooching off everybody, just kind of skating through life, to being my biggest supporter and my backbone. I called him my whipping post because I told him I got to yell at you at practice to get everybody else to do what I need them to do. And so that like moment was when he thanked me for giving him football. And I didn't understand that at first. I kind of was like, what do you mean? Like, you've been playing football since you were 4. He's like, I stopped playing football because everybody kind of stopped rooting for me. People are gone. I've grown up. I'm not in college anymore. There was no reason for me to continue to play. And when I stepped on your field, you pushed me and didn't even know my last name, but you wanted me to be great. So shout out to Martin Weaver. He's, I get a little emotional talking about him. He's kind of my adopted son. I ended up having him work for me as well on my business and helped him transition to being an adult. So I'm proud of him there. But that was one of the moments that, and it kind of correlated over a season, but that was kind of the main kid. Yeah. And then the second one's Daniel Smith, who was a quarterback that was told he'll be second string. He ended up coming to our season and said, hey, coach, I have a scholarship that I'm going to in 4 months, but I want to help your team go to the championship. I said, now, mind you, he's kind of been passed around because everybody knows he's leaving, so they don't want to put their time and energy. I said, dude, if you can get us to the championship, I will do anything and everything you need me to do. So we went it all the way to championship. We lost. He went off to college, won a championship in college. He called me a couple weeks ago and told me, thank you for everything. And just, I'm the reason he continues to play football because he doesn't have a dad either. And I'm just like, I'm not the reason, but I appreciate it. So those are kind of 2 big moments that like make me deal with all the headaches, all the drama, everything that goes in it, just to know that somewhere I'm impacted somebody's life. And there's players that I've heard through the grapevine that I've impacted that I've never talked to in my life. I don't even know their names. I couldn't tell you who they were if they showed up in front of me. I'm just, because there's so many of them. Yeah. But I figure if we can do that as a collective group and just, hey, here's the opportunity. It's up to you to take it.
Yeah.
If I change your life, that's great. If not, I'm still moving forward. Like there's somebody else that'll take that opportunity. So shout out to all those potential players. The opportunity's here.
Yeah.
If you want to come play, the league is, registration's still happening. If you're, trying to coach, we need coaches. That's probably the biggest challenge I think for most teams is to get qualified coaches that actually care about the kids. Mm-hmm. And then, those business owners that want to help support and be on the, the jerseys and the Facebook and all that other stuff. So
yeah. That's awesome. I love both of those, all 3 of those stories. Yeah. And I can tell just from our conversation today that you guys are making a huge impact. Yeah. Making some changes with the league, but then impacting the community. And you've got stuff for all the different ages. You guys are absolutely rocking it right now. So
yeah. Thank you. Appreciate it. Sometimes we get kind of caught up in the lows, like, oh man, another day. And then, it's good to hear that. And that's something I have to remind myself. Jesse does a great job of bringing me out of that kind of that focused on that little minor thing. Hey, did you hear about the fish sandwich at McDonald's? So,
there's always going to be lows, but if you can get a fish sandwich, hey.
Like I said, there's probably hundreds of stories I could tell you.
That's awesome.
Just from team to team and player to player, owners.
That just means we have to have you guys back now.
Oh, for sure. We thank you. Can't thank you enough for having us on, awesome. And thank Karen as well. Yeah. Created a great, relationship with her, and definitely in full support of everything that she did for us. So very thankful and humble to be here. Yeah,
absolutely. Well, thank you guys. So before we take off, if people do want to get in touch with you guys, how can they reach you with numbers, emails, or whatever?
Jesse, you want to answer that, or you want me to?
So
I know all the
marketing
information,
man.
but
how do they get to you?
Well,
I'll fill in the gaps.
If you want to email me, I am first name, last name, Jesse Burke 84 at gmail.com. I can answer any of your league questions or, anything you need from me. And then also I'm heavy on Instagram at the Kid JB, THEKID JB. I'm very frequent with answering and responding to messages and DMs. So full exposure and
cool.
I'm
except
open there.
For the past hour that you've been in here.
Yeah.
No.
Missing some messages.
At that point, I'm an answering machine, yes.
If they want to know more about the league, it's azcfl.com. That's our main website. There's all sorts of articles in there. We have if you go into front office, meet the team, there's some drop downs. You can get a hold of all of our front staff. So my phone number is in there. My email is matt@azcfl.com, which I just realized we still don't have an email for Jesse. So I will get that handled this weekend, get that updated. And, you can phone numbers on there, email address. If you want to reach out to Raphael, he's the director of players. So the players that may be listening or potential players or parents that want players to come, it's Raphael at azcfl.com. All of our stuff's on there. Our head ref, Jesse, just anybody that's involved with the front office of the league. And then there's different page things on there for each of the teams. You can go to the actual team pages to see the players and all that stuff too. And then our schedule will be out in January. So that's something that'll be updated. So there's a lot of stuff going to start happening on there. Went a little dormant with the off season and just trying to revamp our marketing objectives. So, but yeah, all the information for contact on there. And then we're at Facebook, just Arizona Cactus Football League. We have an Instagram. I think my wife runs it. It's AZCFL Official, is I believe the name. I'm not big into the social medias. That's I got Jesse. So
Right.
I'm an email guy. But so yeah, we're pretty much. I think the only thing we don't have is Twitter.
Okay.
Because I'm not a big fan of Twitter. So, but I'm sure
we do a couple of times throughout the games. We did do live tweets, but they were from our personal handles.
Yeah.
So we'll get something just for the game aspect. But like we were saying, we have a message board for people to air out their grievances anyway. So
yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, you guys.
Thanks so much.
This was really cool. I learned a lot, and I'm pretty excited to refer people and share your stories.
And we'll get
with
some
them
tickets
as well.
in here. Like I said, our swag's in Vegas this weekend. So I realized I gave them all of our tickets we had on hand. So I'll get something into you guys to give to your listeners if there's anybody that reaches out to you trying to get a hold of us.
That'd be cool.
So we play on Saturdays in the off season. So there's no other sports that I know of as far as football other than youth. But so
yeah, then tomorrow, like you said, the national championship game and the All-Star game. So I'll be covering the games after the fact. I'm not making a trip, but I'll be there to write, or Gabe will be there, and then we'll write like a wrap up and try to push as any content there's people there that'll be taking pictures and stuff as well. So there'll be exposure for that as well.
Cool. All right. Well, for those of you listening, you've been listening to Phoenix Business Radio, broadcasting live from within the Mac 6 and Conscious Capitalism, Arizona Business RadioX studio. Some media leans left, some leans right. Today we lean business and a little bit of football. Until next time, this is Kinder Maples. Thank you for listening.